Our second international keynote speaker today is the president of National Grid Ventures, a company on the absolute forefront of today's clean energy transition. They invest in large-scale clean energy infrastructure to accelerate society's drive toward the net zero goal. And he will also, as I said, join us in the panel after this. Please give a warm welcome to the president of National Grid Ventures, Ben Wilson.
Hi, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with Statnett, one of our esteemed partners, with Elizabeth, and with all the distinguished guests that we have here today. And I'm going to talk about our partnership with Statnett and North Sea Link. But before that, just a few comments on National Grid. And I think you'll find they very much align with what we've just heard from Andreas. So National Grid, we're a very large utility. We are UK headquartered, but we're 50-50 UK-US. And we are seeing this transition, as Statnett is, as everybody else is, into this age of electricity and growth. So in May, we announced our new 5-year forward investment program, which is $75 billion over the next 5 years. And that is almost double what we spent over the previous 5 years. That means we need to grow our asset base at 10% a year for the next 5 years, and most likely beyond that period. And that required us to go out and raise almost $9 billion of new equity financing on the London Stock Exchange. So the scale of this inflection point and the investment program we now need to deliver is enormous. And internally within National Grid, that is what it feels like at the moment. Everything is about the scale of the delivery challenge we have ahead of us and making sure that we're doing all the things that we need to do to deliver. And I'll come back to some of those points. A lot of those new projects, a lot of that new spend is high voltage DC that Andreas was just talking about. And National Grid, and within the business unit that I run, National Grid Ventures, we have what is at the moment the world's largest portfolio of subsea HVDC interconnectors. And one of the absolute jewels in the crown in that portfolio is North Sea Link, which goes from Kvildal here in Norway over to Blyth in the UK, using Hitachi HVDC technology. It is a great project. And the thing, we're proud of the asset, but what we are most proud of is the one-team relationship that we have between National Grid and Statnett. It's important to note that that project is of dual benefit to both countries. So, for example, in the summer of 2022, there were historically low hydro levels here in Norway, and North Sea Link exported clean power from the UK into Norway. Equally, at significant amounts of the time, the link exports power from Norway to the UK. So it flows both ways to the benefit of both countries. The forecasts that we're looking at for the asset suggest that as we move into the 2030s, it may well be exporting from the UK to Norway for very significant periods of time, potentially for the majority of the time. And the reason for that, or one of the reasons for that, is the huge build out that we're continuing to see in renewables, clean energy in the UK, which has been accelerated by the new UK government, which has come in. So we previously had a target of 2035 for a clean power system. That target now is 2030, clean power 2030. That requires enormous amounts of offshore wind to be built in addition to what we already have. If that happens, that will lead to major exports into Norway and into the rest of the other countries that we are connected to. That energy policy in the UK has been very bilateral between the two sides of politics, and we certainly hope and expect that that will continue, and that gives us that stability to be able to provide signs to the supply chain. That stability of policy needs to apply also at a North Sea basin level. And this is where the scope for cooperation between the UK and Norway and the other North Sea countries and the European Union and the European Commission is very, very significant. We have significant opportunities to do that. There's a number of areas where we need to see cooperation. And the prize here is enormous. We're talking 300 gigawatts of offshore wind potentially in the North Sea between the different countries. The first thing that we need to do both at a national level for each country and then at a basin level, is we need to do long-term planning. Andreas referred to some of this. In the UK now, we have the Clean Power 2030 plan. We're going to have a strategic spatial energy plan for the country, which will set out where we see strategic areas of demand, where we see strategic areas of production, and then what networks are required behind that. And that will very much need to reflect the growth that we are going to see and already are starting to see in data centers and AI and other reshoring of supply chains. It's important to note that that low growth inflection in the US, prospectively, a lot of it is data centers, but actually today, a lot of it is reindustrialization and reshoring. We're seeing a lot of that stuff too. So long-term strategic planning, and then that planning needs to have teeth. It needs to drive the permitting. We share the same view that permitting takes far too long. So where we're getting to in the UK now is those strategic plans set out by the system operator, they will have standing in planning law. So they will establish the need case. So the discussion is no longer around, do we need this project or not? It would be, is the project appropriately mitigated and are there appropriate community considerations and benefits for the project? So the long-term plans need to drive permitting. Then the economic regulation that applies to all of us, to National Grid, to Statnetts, is different in different countries, but there are more similarities than differences. Again, those long-term plans need to trigger a need case in economic regulation that we can go out and place orders, that we can provide long-term certainty to the supply chain, that we can make down payments at a program level, as Andreas said, not project by project, but at a program level. Otherwise, as you heard, we can't get his attention if we need one transformer or one converter station. We need to have a program out there. So we need that ability to do early construction funding, pre-construction funding at program level. We need to be very, very thoughtful about community engagement and community and benefits. That is very important. And if we can provide that long-term certainty, and there were some examples in the previous presentation, then we will get the supply chain stepping up and providing capacity. Now, all those things which are happening in the UK, it's not perfect, but it is starting to happen, they also could very usefully apply at basin level for the North Sea as a whole. So coordinated planning and system design so that we all agree what we're building, that would be an extremely useful thing to have. A coordinated framework around sharing of benefits and revenues. These offshore assets are complicated, and what we don't want is every single time, case by case, we've got to negotiate the arrangements between the different countries. A basin-type approach and a framework would be very, very important. Removing of non-tariff and tariff barriers. The UK exited the single electric market when we went through Brexit. We are very focused on trying to achieve a relinking of electricity trading with the European Union. We already have it with Norway. And we also are very keen to avoid a carbon border tax. And if the UK and if other countries around the North Sea become large producers of renewables, if the North Sea becomes an energy powerhouse in the way that it has been for oil and gas, but for clean energy, we do not want carbon border taxes and other tariff barriers or non-tariff barriers to be getting in the way of that. That is to the mutual detriment. That is a lose-lose situation for North Sea countries. So the UK, working with Norway, working with the European Union to try and eliminate those trade frictions, I think is very, very important. As well as those high-level kind of systematic developments, there are also some very promising and important concrete developments. So we have now a very significant portfolio of point-to-point interconnectors, North Sea Link being an absolute jewel in the ground, as I said. The next frontier is so-called hybrid interconnectors. So here we go from country to country, but along the way, we connect to an offshore platform or to an energy island, and we connect offshore wind directly. So that offshore wind will sit in an offshore bidding zone, and it can supply power to both countries. That provides flexibility. It is more efficient, clearly. It's a better optimization of the system. It reduces the amount of landfalls. And as we all know, with HVDC, when you have landfall, you have a large converter station, and that has community impact along the coastline. So it helps to help deal with that. Those offshore hybrid assets are highly prospective. We are working on two publicly at the moment, two firm projects, a project called Lionlink to the Netherlands with Tennet, and a project called Nautilus to Belgium with Elia. And we have achieved regulatory approval in the UK to move ahead with those projects. We still have some regulatory arrangements to finalize, but we have the benefit of those projects. We think it's highly prospective to do projects like that to Norway as well. And we're very interested in seeking to develop those, and we think those would be very much to the mutual benefit of the two countries. As we work up the arrangements for those, we do need to be able to provide that long-term certainty for the supply chain, as I've said. So, in summary, the scale of what we're going through, the transition, is absolutely enormous. And it requires us to do things differently than we did in the past. Otherwise, we won't achieve that inflection. We will not hit these targets. We will not achieve the decarbonization benefits, security of supply benefits, and affordability benefits of this rollout. We do need to think long-term, and we do need to do this at a pan-national level, at a North Sea basin level, not just at a national by national level, so that we can provide the certainty to the supply chain, and the supply chain can then create capacity, step up, have the confidence that this is not a 3 to 5 year thing and then we go back down again, but it is a long-term transition. I think we can do that. I think National Grid and Statnett, the UK and Norway, can continue to be a really strong exemplar of that partnership. And I think that there's a lot of scope for the two of us to work together with the rest of the North Sea countries in the European Union to really push that ahead. So I'm very excited, but there are significant challenges which still lie ahead. And no doubt, as we move now to the panel discussion, we will touch on some of those. So thank you very much.